Yo ho, the pirate's life for thee. It is Monday, the 2nd of June, and guess what? We're still here doing this stormy stuff. Not really but it is what it is, right? It is a new month, a new day. We have severe storms bringing damaging winds to parts of West Texas and the Panhandle. Yippee-ki-yay. All right, let's talk about what's going on. And let me first off start by saying I don't think we're going to have many tornado issues today. This is not your classic tornado looking day. We're dealing with a line of storms here, or even individual storms that are producing a lot of strong winds because we have a pretty dry and hot low level air mass. And as that occurs, we're seeing a lot of these thunderstorms and showers even produce strong winds of 60 to 80 miles an hour down at the surface. So let's go ahead. We'll switch over to the super duper awesome blossom high resolution radar. We'll pop over here to the Amarillo site. And this leading edge of the line from near Hardesty, Oklahoma down to Spearman, east to Stinnett, down to Pampa, Skellytown, down to west of McLean, east of Groom. This line itself could have winds of 60 to maybe even 70 miles an hour. It's moving off to the east at 45 miles an hour. This is a line capable of damaging straight line winds of 60 to 75 miles an hour. Heavy rain, maybe some quarter-size hail. We did have a quick tornado warning earlier for a brief circulation back on Interstate 40. That has dissipated, and this whole line of storms is pretty outflow dominant now, meaning the tornado threat is extremely low. We are seeing a pretty good amount of wind approaching the city of Pampa here on the radar. And again, we could have easily 60, 70 mile an hour winds here. Pretty gnarly looking clouds, some pretty good rain, cloud to ground lightning, and maybe quarter-size hail. I'll be honest, the reason I'm not more uppity-duppity about the whole damaging wind in the Panhandle, 60, 70 mile an hour winds is, look, you'll deal with that several times each winter. It's the Panhandle. You go to Taco Bell and have a bad night, you're going to have a 70 mile an hour wind gust. So, yes, they're hazardous. Yes, they can produce wind damage, but I'm not as concerned out here as I would be, say, down in East Texas, where you get a 40 mile an hour wind gust and you're going to knock half a forest down. So, that's why we're here. We're talking about it, but, this is not one of these big, bad, very mad, I'm going to blow your house down situations. This is a line of storms with some 55 to 70 mile an hour winds. Maybe some quarter-size hail, quick round of heavy rain, and cloud-to-ground lightning moving off to the east-northeast at about 45 miles an hour. So guess what? McLean, Miami, Canadian, Wheeler, Shamrock, Perryton, Higgins, Booker. Please don't die over there. Follette. It's going to storm in the next 2 hours. Damaging winds? Probably a good bet. Power outages? Tumbleweeds flying around, probably some sheet metal getting blown down. Probably going to have some power outages again, some wind damage, stuff like that. Is it possible we could see a wind gust over 80 miles an hour? Yes, and that would create more considerable issues, but that'll be localized. Let's go down to West Texas and say hello, because why not? It's a good day to go, whoa! We got a shower over Silverton, a shower and storm. And again, all these out here today are able to mix down some pretty gnarly winds over 60 miles an hour. So even though they may not look like much on radar, they're still producing very strong to damaging winds that could knock down power lines, fences, if you got some old buildings out there or weakened buildings, stuff like that, it may knock them down. We got a storm near Idalou to Lorenzo and Rawls on Highway 82. And this is going to be just east of Lubbock. Could have winds of 60 plus miles an hour with that, moving northeast at 15. Same story, back from near Meadow, west of Ropesville, back west of Sundown. We could have winds of 60 miles an hour, and maybe some nickel-size hail. That's just under 1 inch in diameter. Those storms, again, moving northeast at 25 miles an hour. Slower than the storms up in the Panhandle, for sure. Now, down the Permian Basin, it looks like we're having our daily Fort Stocktoning event. Supercell west of Fort Stockton by a good, 15 miles, moving off to east at 25 miles an hour. So guess what, Fort Stockton? Storm on 285, about 50 miles northwest of town, coming down and saying, yippee-ki-yay, hello, it's Monday. And that storm could have quarter-size hail, localized winds of 60 miles an hour. Around Pecos, we've got some storms. Those all moving northeast as well at about 20 miles an hour. So, might be asking, well, Mr. Baldy Man, what's it going to be doing for the rest of the night? Who all's dealing with this nonsense? And here we go. We're just going to pop on over to that magical, super-duper awesome Blossom high-resolution rapid refresh model. I just need to change some settings on here, the upper third, or that label at the top of the page, screen, whatever you want to call it. I think I'm still jet-lagged or whatever, but we're going to load the and we're just going to show you what we think, or it thinks, is going to go on tonight. No, we're not going to do that. So, we'll load from 6 p.m. through 5 a.m. I'm going to load this. It'll play in sequential order. I'll get a timestamp on here for you. And guess what? We could have storms well into the night across parts of the Big Bend, the Permian Basin, the Rio Grande Plains, into the Concho Valley, West Texas, Panhandle. You could see this model actually keeps storms going through most of the night. And some of these storms tonight, overnight, will be capable of some hail, localized damaging winds, quite a bit of cloud-to-ground lightning, and heavy rain. We may have a small cluster that evolves down here out of the Trans-Pecos, moves over Fort Stockton, then kind of transitions southeast down Highway 90 towards Sanderson, and eventually Del Rio there. Otherwise, again, you could see the eastern half of the state, eastern two-thirds of the state, dry today. Tomorrow, not so much. Tomorrow could be a busy or severe weather day across portions of the Big Country, northwest Texas, into North Texas, Texoma, the Concho Valley, with the threat of large hail, damaging winds, and maybe a tornado or two. So that is what we're looking at right now. And again, this is not going to be one of these big, busy tornado days. This is a day where we're just kind of here, keeping an eye on some of these storms with some nasty wind potential, heavy rain, pocket change size hail, and again, up here from near Spearman to Pampa, moving northeast, could have damaging winds, moving up towards Follett, Canadian, and Shamrock. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and be doing updates about every 20 to 30 minutes or so. So, our next update will be here at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. We'll be back sooner if necessary, but until then, enjoy the music, enjoy the automated warnings, and we'll keep an eye on the sky. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It's 5:30 p.m. on the 2nd of June, 2025. We're monitoring a line of thunderstorms approaching the Perryton, Canadian, and town name just north of Wheeler. There we go. Approaching places like Miami to Canadian, eventually Wheeler, up towards Perryton. That's where the line of storms is located right now, up here in the Panhandle. It's moving east quickly at about 45 miles per hour. This line could have wind gusts of 50 to 65 miles an hour. We're fortunate that the storms themselves have not been producing any sort of crazy strong winds recently. There was concern these could be producing, 80 to 100 mile an hour winds, but thankfully they have not become that organized and are producing modestly unpleasant winds to locally damaging. Pampa had about a 55 mile an hour wind gust, and these storms continue to race to the northeast at about 45 miles an hour, which is going to place them in places like Follett, Canadian, Wheeler, even down to Shamrock in the next 30 to 60 minutes before they continue racing into western Oklahoma and Kansas. Farther south, we've had some storms from near Loveland to Lubbock to Rawls. Those storms are no longer severe, but we will continue to monitor them as they continue to be capable of producing winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour at times, along with pocket change size hail. Quite a bit of cloud ground lightning. South into the Trans-Pecos, well, we got a few storms down here as well. These are behaving themselves mostly with the potential of some strong winds, hail, and heavy rain. But again, the good news is we're not really dealing with anything crazy right now. So, what we're going to do, given that we're not really doing anything, is we're going to go ahead and we're just going to push everybody here over to our live radar stream. And if we end up needing to come back and do coverage, we will. But you're going to get the same thing you've been getting here. Music, audible weather warnings, and updates as necessary. But again, it's a lot of storms with some gusty winds up here in the Panhandle. Y'all get worse in the winter when we get a cold front coming through, minus the factors lightning. And then we will continue to watch West Texas, the Panhandle, down to the Permian Basin. Again, we're going to have storms all evening overnight, and some of those storms will have hail, heavy rain, strong to locally damaging winds. And then tomorrow, we're probably going to be a bit more busy in the big country, northwest Texas, Texoma, North Texas, into the Concho Valley, with the threat of some of these storms being severe, with very large hail damaging winds and maybe a few tornadoes. So we'll enjoy the not as active day, and if need be, we'll be back later with updates. Otherwise, we're going to push over to our 24/7 weather radar stream. Thanks for tuning in. As always, God bless. We'll keep an eye on the sky.